Welcome everybody to Karen Kendra podcast. And today we have two gorgeous guests here tonight to talk to us all in regards to abuse in a relationship among the transgender community. Okay, and my name is Karen Kendra Holmes, and I go by pronouns of she, her, and hers. And so we want to send in your comments tonight. Let us know if you got any questions that you would like to ask, and don't be shy. It's going to be very emotional. Let's put it that way. And so we got Mimi here, and then we have Kat on this side here. So we're going to be able to answer any questions, hopefully, that you may bring up. And so just relax. We even got our wine here to just make sure everything goes well. And Mimi doesn't have any, so she wants to make sure that she's in good frame of mind to be able to speak the truth about what she knows about sexual abuse and verbal abuse in a relationship. And she's going to take it primarily on her own. So, Mimi?
Okay, and I wanted to clarify that it was narcissistic abuse. I want to make sure that I'm very clear in reference to what, we're talking about. I feel it's very important to realize that certain things happen to different individuals, and as we all know, we have certain parts in our life that we come across situations that are unpredictable. We're usually faulted for them. Why were you in this? Why didn't you get out? Things happen, and you usually don't help yourself by even trying to help others. In this situation, it's more of a freeing sense to not allow this to be a thing where I'm hushed, I'm under scrutiny with what has gone on.
Just real quick before you go in, can you, for our audience, just in case they don't know what narcissistic is, and that way that'll give them a better feel for what's going on.
Well, I will leave that to the writer and editor, Kat, to explain more so on what that is.
Basically, what narcissistic behavior is a person that believes everything is about themselves. They're the type of person that will take their own misbehaviors and put it on another person. It's really about control and power for these people. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know as much. I'm still in my journey of healing and learning myself, but dealing with my therapist, that's what I've been getting from it.
Okay, good.
And there is a difference between being a narcissist, who is a person who, likes to look at themselves, post social media. We all have certain attributes of narcissism. The separation comes down to it when you are a pathological narcissist. That means that there is a gain in what you do. It's not about vanity. It's not about something simple. It's very targeted, and it comes with a lot of gaslighting, mental abuse, maneuvering, and also creating enablers that will then isolate a person within their own circle. A lot of times, people that we've seen in big media are the Epsteins and Weinsteins. They started somewhere, and later it was just unfortunate that it took so much damage for them to finally be called out. But when you deal with money and power, it's a lot different.
Wow. Okay. So how long were you in this relationship like that?
About 3 years. Okay. And before that, I had a relationship with my father, who was the first person that introduced me to this type of behavior. It's why I was weary about a lot of things that went on. It's why I questioned a lot of my reality with this person from the very beginning. So I felt I was on it. Mm-hmm. I felt, I was very familiar, but I had never been caught off guard due to what I feel was a form of child regression the person had, where they act very innocent, kid-like. It catches you off guard. So you tend to think you're taking care of somebody. Tantrums are had, but you feel like it's something that you can deal with and control. Somehow it was your doing. that caused it.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to direct your energy towards fixing the issue with them versus what the issue at hand was.
Okay. So, before I get really into some deep questions, how long did this go on with your father?
Almost all my life.
Oh, really?
I decided to break away what I thought I was doing 6.5 years ago when I decided to start my own business.
Okay.
He wanted to use my social to create a company and cut me out, and I decided no. I did start my own company on my own back, without a lot of help and things, besides my family and friends, encouraging me. And for a course of 4 years, he attacked me, he slandered me, he created situations that were hard to be in the same kind of competitive field. This was total control manipulation of my life. I was not able to even use my own name
Wow.
to curate business. He had poisoned my last name to a point where people denied me work. Later in years to come, people came around. They saw that I was a different person. I had excommunicated myself from this person, but the threats, the coming into examinations at a time I'm conducting to, create situations. They always threaten to call the police on you. You're always the one in trouble. You're always doing something wrong in these type of people's mindsets because you're offending them whenever you speak up. And he was the first person that introduced me to being really quick on your feet in the nick of time because things can change in a dime. You take it. The physical, the mental, the manipulation to where you start to have passive aggressive outbursts, and you start to say things, and people unknowingly to the situation look at you like, oh, what's wrong with you? And then they always are sitting in the background like, oh, look, you're crazy. See what I'm dealing with? It's always what they're dealing with, never what you're dealing with, never the poking constantly. And having to deal with that in business, live with the person. My finances were controlled by my father, so I am very familiar with control of my monetary value and the throwing of it in your face of how much more they do. Something that seemed very familiar to me in this relationship, where it was all about, I could do more. I could always do more. I was achieving accolades. I was really on top of my game, I felt, especially when I met them. I was becoming the vice president of the chamber, something they saw very quickly within me meeting them. They saw I was a go-getter. I was the anomaly in reference to a lot of things that trans women, especially of color, go through. And it became a I guess, fixation in a sense to be a part of that. Many times I was almost coerced to allow them into my business and line of work, and they always said that they wanted me to start a business with them. But knowing what I had been through with my father, knowing the point of why they do that is to control your freedom and to then hammer down. And there was witnesses to this newfound glory of starting a business, and how somehow they just needed this all of a sudden, and it was to, I feel, lean me into feeling like, well, I should open myself up to you even more this way.
And this is what sets people up for further abuse. This is not uncommon for people that have dealt with previous trauma, especially during childhood. Talking with my therapist, I've realized that we tend to experiment when we've dealt with childhood trauma, and it's not a conscious thing. It's something that basically, I can give you an example. A woman that's been abused her whole life, she's going to experiment with the next guy or girl or whoever. She's going to experiment with the next person and say, they won't do this because they care about me. And it's not conscious, but they tend to go towards the more volatile people. And what do volatile people do? they'll have explosive arguments. They'll hit you, whatever the case may be. But that's the volatile person, and they can't change unless they want to change. They're not going to change just because they love you or just because of this. They have to change for themselves. But we tend to unconsciously experiment with these things, and it isn't until we become conscious of that experimenting that we can change it.
So, at what age did it start for you?
It started for me, it started at 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Mine was with female peers.
Okay.
Mine was sexual abuse.
Gotcha.
And that led me into my first relationship with my boyfriend. And he was very emotionally, verbally, and mentally abusive. And that just led me down the trail of dealing with narcissists.
So you just got out of a relationship. So what similarities was that with your father?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I would actually say that this person in the beginning reminded me of my father. They were very into...
That might be a caller calling in.
Every time I do something with your ringtone goes off. Like, I don't care, like, our radio show, everything is the, like, Bad Boys ringtone. So I'm not, next time I have to carry a song or something. But, we have to laugh through the pain, don't have to laugh through the pain. But,
well, hopefully that caller would have had something nice to say, to give you some encouragement,
Yeah, and,
right.
I think that what I realize is that this isn't for everyone. It's not for everyone to digest. It's not for everyone to accept, because to be very honest, I did not. I found myself being very overpolarized by other women. All of a sudden I felt that other women were more of a threat to me. And it was because there was a constant comparison of them looking and creating a insecurity that I had never really felt or had before. And it almost seemed like a wave of like compulsion over this person when somebody would walk by, and I was always very like whatever about things like that, but it was so meant, and later I realized it was to kind of keep a control on the way I was always so free and, up there. I was a person who sang karaoke, and, I get on stage and I talk to people, and I always enjoy that comfortability. I then all of a sudden started to feel like really weird, and I think, I kind of turned to this a little bit because we were talking about somebody kind of calling in, hopefully, like, they said something nice, but I feel like, whenever you're bearing your truth and you're trying to be the best version of yourself, I felt I wasn't. I felt I wasn't for a long time, and I felt the reason to actually speak on this was, how can I represent a community? How can I represent people like myself? How can I pretend that I had this like life that was just so perfect, and then just, all of this happens and I just go right into it like, okay, whatever, and then, people feel somehow that it's owed to them to know what happened to you or what happened with that person.
Right.
In the last month, I've gone to different places with people that I haven't seen in a very long time. First thing they say, oh, how's such and such? You had moved. You had done all these things. Seems like you were living this life. And I was like, and it did. And it did. It seemed like I was living this life. It seemed like I was living the fairy tale. I was the percentage of, trans women that were, making it with this man who, was doing all of these things. And I tried to believe it. Even when I would see things, I tried to believe it.
Even from the start?
Even from the start.
Okay.
From the start, the similarities were the quick maneuvering and gaslighting. I met the person, around with people, the first time, and it was like, so exposed in a sense. I was around people that I knew. It was like a thing. Then the next time, second date, it's like, okay, dinner. But then it's like now this gradually like, oh, let me pull out this phone. I'm very busy. This is like my life. I'm very busy. Now, I was also told this person was a business owner. I said I was a business owner. So immediately it was the mirroring effect of, oh, I'm just as great. I'm equal to you. You know, I still have the text message because I would go back and be like, did I confuse this? Like, did I? And it says it very, very vividly. I'm a business owner. So immediately, you know, put you, you know, right there, you know, and was on the phone the second night, you know, oh, sorry, you know, sorry. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, you know, we're going to like go to dinner. Later it moves on into, you know, afterwards. And the things they try to impress me with, I had been very familiar. I grew up with, you know, parents that drove certain cars and things like that. So, but I was already seeing that it was like, oh, let me show you know, what I have, what I could have, what you could be a part of. And I wasn't falling for it until I was sitting there and I was like, oh, you know, are you dating other people? Are you talking? You know, I mean, come on. I mean, I just met you, Raleigh, right? But it was like, no, like I am very, you know, isolated that way. I don't have time. I don't have time for a relationship that way, but I really want one now. And, you know, I am not on any other sites. And, you know, I don't know what you're used to. So, you know, that's the turn trick, right? Where it's the tactic of disarm you. You're crazy to think people are like this. What have you been used to? And so I'm like, oh, you know, and so then I think, okay, fine. You know, let me delete the apps. Let me give this person a chance. And that was the day before Thanksgiving. And I remember, for some reason, that weekend, I sent a text or something, and I remember just all of a sudden feeling this draining. Like, something wasn't right. Something didn't feel right. And I remember just sitting there all night, and it was so weird for me because, you know, I have friends, I have people that talk to me and care, you know, I mean, it's not weird, you know, for me to sit alone and watch Netflix or whatever, but it felt weird that day. And I remember I even was watching Crazy Rich Asians, and the movie made me cry, like, and it was just something coming over me. And I guess it was the start of understanding that my intuition was really trying to hone in, and I was listening to what I had been told. So I was starting to turn already against myself, that this person is this person. I'm damaged. That's the beginning of how they maneuver you.
Wow.
Your mind turns against each other, and against itself, and that's the gaslighting.
A lot to digest, isn't it?
Yes. That's the longest effect that I have still had to endure, is the longevity of the gaslighting, because it doesn't go away when you're looked in the face and told that you're psychotic. This is not real. This cannot be happening. Even when I would come upon things, I would see things, you know, and I would question them very quickly. You know, why were you giving that woman your number? Or did she know your name all of a sudden? We were just out at an event. It almost seemed like when I would take this person to events, it was like open game. You know, how do I poke her? How do I get her out of her element to worry about me now? Because it was about her.
Right.
Coming to these events. But now it needs to be about me. And what I'm doing. And it would always turn into that.
Wow.
But yet somehow I was being told I was dramatic, I was jealous, I was bitter, I was insecure all of a sudden. And it just made no sense to me, because I'm like, well, if you're doing something and I see it and I say this is what you're doing, and you look at me and then you get angry, now I'm backing down. And I was never a person to do that. I was always very, you know, oh, I'm not dealing with this. But I was dealing with it.
And then when I first met you, you know, at the event for Pride, I didn't see that in you.
No.
You were a very positive person, and spirited and just glowing right then at that time. And I guess he came along after that, since you said, I think, how long y'all been together?
It was like since the end of 2018.
Yeah, so that was, after we had met. So
Yeah.
That's a big change.
It was, and my mom saw me go through the change. She saw it to a point where I was being gaslit with text messages, that the person would text me, you know, all of a sudden and then like disappear all day. And we were supposed to be together. You know, he had said we were going to be together, and I was like, are you sure? It seems kind of quick. You know, already said I love you, but then was like, oh, let's not say I love you. And I was like, that's weird, you know? And I remember in January when they were leaving, this is only the first few months of dating, like, it was like, oh, I'm going to be leaving. I don't want you to feel neglected. And I'm like, why would I feel neglected? Because you might try and call, I might not be able to get back to you. You know, I just don't want you to feel that way, but, you know, just know that I'm working and busy. Well, that, like, made me feel like, well, if I call you, am I now doing something wrong?
Right.
Am I now, like, in this boundary where, like, you're going to be upset with me and, like, get rid of me? Like as if already there was this thing. Unknown to me, there was a person that was already in a relationship with this person that I ended up finding cards written to him the next August.
That's what I was going to ask you, you know, because the fact he's telling you, if I don't get back to you right away, is there some reason why you think, why don't you answer, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a person who was literally glued to the phone to the point where you could never even have a conversation.
Right.
Always texting. And then when I brought it up, they like, well, I should never have to wait for a text. It quickly reverses to, you're ridiculous, you're doing too much. And it's so abrupt, and it's so hard for people to understand that aren't really, like, involved in these kind of situations, because they're like, why would you take that? Why would you deal with that? But if you're looking at, like, well, maybe I am being too much. Maybe I'm not understanding this. Maybe this person has a different kind of privacy. But then I started to feel like my privacy was all of a sudden being deteriorated. You know, all of a sudden my Instagram was being torn apart by the likes and who was liking and who was this and who was that. But yet they were still tagged in pictures of ex-girlfriends, which is the only reason why I knew who the woman was who ended up messaging me later within the year, because she was tagged in a photo that his friend's wife had tagged her in. And I feel like in a way they were tag teaming bullying this woman because she had split personality disorder and she had a rough time growing up, and these were things I would like listen to but never get the full story. But when the woman reached out to me, she was pretty smart, I'd say, and it was only a few days after my first birthday, which was kind of sad because I was very excited and I just seen, you know, him in a situation that he was at, and I begged to go. You know, which was always a thing. You always had to beg. You could never, you know, and I was like, why am I even begging? Like, you come to everything with me, like, whatever. But they box you. They breadcrumb. So the breadcrumbing is like, give you a little and then move it back. Give you a little, move it back. So you're always coming, but you're not getting everything. And in those situations, I was very isolated and could not, like, talk to people. You know, it was like no introductions, things like that. You know, especially this couple that, you know, he always seemed to retreat to after anything got hard, and ended up that this woman was one of the people that I realized was texting him, saying to come over while her husband was out of the country.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a whole kind of coercion, like, of these people, and anytime something came up, you know, I was always told that I was out of my mind. I never really understood it because I would always be like, well, if you need to be, like, single or do something else, then please let me know. Like, this is kind of, like, crazy. But it comes to a point where, like, me and my own insecurities got really ignited. You know, I thought that me being in the genre that I am, you know, I was fortunate. You know, I had been in a long-term relationship for 6.5 years, and that person was very nice to me. You know, they only had certain complacencies and things like that, and I felt like we outgrew each other. But I was never treated like that. And I don't know if it was because of the dream that was sold to me so quickly that I held on. Like, if I leave now, you know, they'll be gone. You know, marriage was always put over my head. Oh, I'm going to marry you, you know, stay. Like, we're going to be together, you know, stop, you know, this kind of thing. So I don't think people really understand what narcissism, mental abuse can do to you. You start to fade into your own gaslighting. When you know it's wrong, you say to yourself, no, it's not wrong.
Well, this is why I told you that, it was good that you didn't retaliate, whether it was in spite or vulnerability. I had my own experience with my first boyfriend where we had broken up. He slept with 3 girls. Well, what did I do? Because I loved him, I forgave him. But out of that vulnerability, I ended up kissing a friend of mine. I told him as a means of transparency and to try and get past it. It didn't mean anything, but it was vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what he said to me? He said to me, what you did was worse. He said, I should have slept with your friend. I should have done this. I should have done that. You are worthless.
Wow.
Yeah, it definitely transmutes into that. After even finding out all of this crazy stuff and whatever else, here I was invited to get-togethers. I was kept away from people for more than a year, and I kind of felt like I was always given like little bits, cheat on me. Oh, I'll put you on a story. And I wouldn't know what was going on. It would just be like all of a sudden, like this nice talk about how wonderful I am, and then all of a sudden they do something. Oh, do you want to see, meet people? And it'd be like after like some kind of issue before I lived with them, where it was like they were just nasty me all of a sudden, and I was like, oh, you don't want me to come up? Like, I don't really understand. And then it was like, oh, you're watching me. And I'm like, watching you do what? Like, what is it that you're doing that I'm watching? Okay?
What is he doing that he doesn't want you to see? Yeah.
And that was the point, and this was all announced to me. The only thing I had known within this part of the relationship after the move was that the ex had texted, messaged me, and that was supposed to be done. Okay? And then also that, I found condoms in this bag, earrings, and the cards from the woman, from before. But this woman, it was different name at the time, so it was all this maneuvering. And I'm just like, why would you do all of this? Like, I even lived in a different state, like, at this point. Like, that's the hardest part, is the ruminating after of why did this happen? Why did you choose me to do this? And what was it about me that made you feel like you needed to do this? And
what drew him to you?
Me being an empathic person who kept giving. So when you are an empathic person and you feel like giving to people and doing for people is like a good gift for you, people that suffer from NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, really seek you out, because the more they pull back, the more you do for them, the less they do for you, and they make it a point not to do for you. So you have a need. And I had a need. I always had a need. I'm the person, any celebration, I want to give gifts, anything I want to do. So I kept thinking, okay, well, you didn't do that this time, fine. I'll show you that, this is who I am. And I kept showing who I was, to the point where I started to realize, like, well, why is it always going out?
Not coming back.
No, it's not coming back. And then I started to see their dynamics with other people was the same. People would always try and show up, but it was only when it mattered to him. And so, it's sad because he was surrounded by so many wonderful people that I really, truly enjoyed. And it was hard to know the things that were going on and the conversations behind situations. Like, I was always seemingly like, oh, I was bitching or I was this and that. But it was like, no, there's like an ongoing problem that's going on that I don't know about. And I didn't find out until like just a few months ago. And even after that, I concealed all of this to still be able to attend certain things, to show face, to hopefully allow the person to change, after thinking, well, the jig is up. I have the keys to the castle now because, like, I now know all of this. Now all of this is out of our way. We can be better. You can be better. And,
So did you see the change in him right away, right from the start of y'all's relationship, or did it take a little time?
It was 2 days of, like, basically don't leave me kind of situation of, like, I'm going to do what you've asked me to do forever, which is, like, oh, I'm going to post you. I'm going to, like, do these things. I'm going to tell this woman to go away. I'm going to do these things. And, it was more than that for me, because in a moment, I found out that all of this was just a lie. and that I had been made to look like a fool. And it was crazy to me. And I remember being so calm. And I just walked away from the computer that was randomly up, because that never happened. And I felt like, oh, this is something. This never happens. And I just sat in my car and I called my mom. And I was like, he's doing these things. And she was like, did you see? I said, I saw and I knew. I'd been saying this. But other people had been so fooled by the persona that even when I kind of started talking about it, it was like, you might be thinking too much. Why would they do that? Why would they move you in this house? Why would they introduce you to bosses and friends? Why would they do it? And I said it to myself, well, why?
Right.
And then people put on your genre title as you're more fortunate to get those things, because people just don't do that for those folks. So it's nobody's fault. But when I saw it, I just remember being so calm, because in a way I was so relieved that I, at this one time in 2 years, felt like I knew what I was talking about. And I calmly spoke to them. They were all, jittery about it and whatever. And I just remember telling them how I felt. You were mentally manipulating me. You were doing this to me. And they were like, no. And I was like, you're just trying to save your ass right now from whatever, I don't know. But the thing is that I don't get why this is a thing for you.
Were you the first trans woman he's ever dated?
Supposedly, I don't know. Dated, whatever, who knows, those kind of things. To be very honest, Karen, I don't know what I know.
Yeah.
To know that I came upon not one, not two, but 6 different messages from different people in the whole time in my life. I'm down 4 hours away last August, right before we decided to live together. I'm happy, but even though I was happy, I still felt this thing on me, right? I go down there, and it doesn't take long. It's just, went somewhere with these people that, like that couple, okay, this couple, this anonymous couple all the time. And that I know, he was done with that woman. And it would burn me, because I didn't know, but I knew something weird was going on, because why didn't I know these people? I've been with you for so long. And now they live in Maryland, right? So, but I'm down there, and, God bless my transparency, but he came down a week later, and the next day, my mom told me that she was going through some medical issue. And I don't want to expose all of that, but people who are close to me know. And it devastated me. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm working at this Airbnb with 2 friends, and, he comes down there, and I was so devastated that me and her could have a whole different situation one day. And I remember going on a run and just running it out. And I saw him out there, and I confided. And he was just very quick, like, well, it'll be okay. Don't, like, what's wrong? Why are you so upset? Like, it was like never about something I could have just been upset. It was always this thing on them, like, do you know something? And I just remember being like, and I leave. I drove and I screamed in my car, just out of the unfairness of life. And I came back, and I remember just being, just distraught. And the next day I went to the job I had to be at, and my 2 friends who work with me came, and he was there at the house. And I came back, and he told me in passing that, I'm going to go tomorrow and leave on the train. And I was like, well, why? What do you mean? Why would you leave? I said, well, I don't know. There's nothing really to do here, and I want to play video games. And I just remember, like, this thought, like, I just decided to live with you. I'm down here. I don't have any other outlets. You're supposed to be my partner, and you know what my mom is just going through. How do you do that?
Right.
And when I brought it up, it was like, oh, why are you so upset? I don't know why. At that point, I just was like, no. But the dream had been just so put in. And I felt maybe I'm overreacting. And I remember telling one of my friends, I went downstairs and I said, he wants to leave. And they were like, what? Why? Why would you? And this is what like narcissists do. Because you can never have the moment to be vulnerable, to be real, to understand what you're going through, because it's not about them.
Right.
And he would always say, it always has to be about you, it always has to be about you. And I was like, you know what, boo, I'll be real with you. When it's about me, it's about me. And people can love that part. Because I make it about other people. For friends' birthdays, I make sure it's special. For Christmas, I'm there.
Right.
For his own house, I made sure it was special. And it's just like, you just couldn't be here. And then I'll just stay. I'll just stay. Like, it was this big favor.
At that point, I'd have said, adios.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like, you know, a lot of times people say, why don't you say adios? Why don't you get up and go? Why aren't you happy? You're not happy. And it's because at that time I was still under the guise of not knowing everything that I knew. So, perfect person. They'll change when I leave. That's what gets into your mind. They will change for the better once you leave for somebody else. And I want to be real with people that that's not true. I have done the work with the therapist that was my prior couples therapist, and she picked up on a lot of these things.
Mm.
She picked up on the fear of embarrassment from him and the things, and she was like, that's a him thing. This is because he has so much going on that he can't release. He dwindled down this story, girl.
How long were y'all in therapy together?
We went to 3 or 4 sessions, because after I started to open up about how I had felt and the real things that went on afterwards, it was like I was enemy number one, because I found a safe space to say these things, because I could never really speak about them myself with this person, because it'd be like, ugh, you know, and this pounding, this walking away, this behavior that would make me want to blow up and be upset and be like, why aren't you listening to me? Why don't you hear me? And then other things ensue. And now it's my fault. And I don't get it.
So did he stop the therapy, or did you stop it?
Nobody stopped anything. We had rescheduled it to a following month because she had surgery.
Okay.
And that happened to be the month that everything kind of was on its way down and really imploded, because we had we went on a trip, and that trip was so crazy because it was for a friend of his that I really think is so amazing, and his girlfriend's wonderful, and they're just like great people. Like, he has so many wonderful people in his life. I don't understand this kind of stuff. But it was really hard to watch other couples that were secure and happy and having the conversations that I always wanted to have, but would always be shot down because there was always some secret trap door of lies or whatever was going on, that you couldn't just post a picture happy of us. You couldn't just be. You couldn't do these things. And it's because of other things you were doing. So I always question myself of how was I so crazy when this started the first month I knew you, admittedly, and it was supposed to just be that one time. But the stuff don't add up.
Right.
This text don't add up. None of that added up. And I kept it because I was just like, you know what, it is what it is. But now, after doing the therapy, after watching a lot of Dr. Ramani's videos in reference to narcissism and things like that, I feel it's important to not pretend that my life isn't affected, that my friends weren't, that my mom didn't have to see me go through all of that, and that also there's a lot of people who are out here that get shot down, shut down, told to shut up. People are in situations they can't get out of. I was fortunate enough that people who cared about me, even in an area that I wasn't living in long, they were around for outlets, but I couldn't tell them everything. I feared that they would do something to take the advantage away from me to be with the person that I thought would one day be the person I thought they could be, or that they had said at one time they were.
Right.
So how do you confide when a person you know will take it into their own hands?
Right.
You can't. So you push them away and you say no. And you make up things. And so I just sat through a lot of moments that just weren't wonderful, and every time you hang out with people on there, and they would say something that would somehow spark something that was alive.
I have such a hard time dealing with somebody that's going to treat you like this. I mean, you're a beautiful woman. I don't, I'm trying to think, was he treating you like a trophy piece, where he wanted to bring you out, show you up, but then behind closed doors, just totally treat you like...
I think that it happens in the fact that I was probably always hitting nerves.
Okay.
Because I was always questioning. I was always a very intuitive person. So if I was very, naive and didn't really get into things and investigate certain things that didn't feel well to me, oh sure, this could have gone on for years. And that's where, people get married, they have kids, they do these things, and all of a sudden it's the scorpion, on the swan effect. Well, sorry, you did all of this and you got me across the river, but it's in my nature, and so that's the point, is I knew it was in this person's nature and I was calling it out, but I didn't have the evidence and I was being told I was crazy. So the thing is, I felt I'm messed up. Okay, so I'm dealing with this. But the point is that I was really fighting myself. I found meditation. I relied on, a wonderful friend who really taught me so much. And every time I would be broken down while this person's out of town living their lives, being Mr. Big, I'm at home learning how to meditate and get through my pain and forgive something that was so ridiculous that the person had just done. Mm-hmm. Each time, each step. Okay? Yeah. And so to be treated badly, it's almost like a concept. What was bad? Was it the fun times and then the cut remarks, or was it the I have passive aggressive and now they feel a certain way? I have my own guilt in things. I have my own lashes out. I have my own pressure. But when there's always a problem that is never fixed and the person's always holding it, it causes sensitivity, anxiety, irritation, all of these things that could just be, hey, can you do that? And it's like a thing. Mm. Because they're already or if I say, hey, it's like, what is it? Because any given moment, it could be, hey, I know what you did. So there were moments where I felt they were fun, and that was probably when we didn't live together. I think COVID really changed a lot of people's directions in their life because, like they said, a lot of people, either were together or they weren't, because you really get to hone in on a person all the time. The other things that they're doing, the whatever, it's just encapsulated. And you have to see what they're doing.
Right.
And so for a time period, yeah, maybe when they weren't leaving the house, nothing was happening, but it was still on that phone. So as soon as I leave, then they was, right there.
Right.
So I think I was being groomed, technically, to be a live-in fetish, where it was there's a part of things that I won't get into, just to keep a little anonymity of that. But
do you think that other trans women are going through something similar like this as well?
I think that there's a majority of them that do. I think that that's the point, is that you have a person who is supposed to be safe in a sense. They have something to lose, money, whatever. That's why I don't name any names. I'm not doing anything like that, because it is what it is. This is my story to tell, and mine only. This is for my release. This isn't to hurt them or do anything to them, and that's just what it is. But the point is trans women go through a lot of alienation, victimization. They get categorized, marginalized. They get the short end of the stick a lot of times. And I think that my reasoning for this is, how am I going to be a leader? How am I going to be accepted if I sit on a podium and I tell other women what they can do, how they can be, what jobs they should think about having, how I inspired people, or I aspired to be somebody. Other people tell me what I've done. I don't always believe it. Mm-hmm. But how can I become a better version of myself if I allow this to happen to me and I don't atone for it? And I don't tell people that, you know what, in my life, it is not all perfect, and that people don't have to be in a certain job They don't have to be categorized as something to go through these things. Men go through it, you know? I mean, it's people that go through this stuff, and it's like you just shut down, you don't say anything, and then you become some raging person. And I don't want to be that person. I hadn't posted on Facebook in the longest time. I don't remember. Like, I mean, a picture, sure. The facade, great. You know, yeah, I was good at it. And I'm being honest because I want to be real. I did these things because I didn't want to fail in the people's eyes that I had started to get to know. I wanted to remain that person. And I felt like if I would have left, if I would have said what things were, how things truly were, I would have been looked at just like another whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And I just feel that I could not be unauthentic anymore. I didn't want to just go away. I didn't want this to any longer affect my job, to affect how my work is with the chamber, to start to be standoffish to people because they don't know what's going on in my life and they keep asking. Mm. I feel it's important for people to realize that this happens to so many people, and you know, I'm sure the other person is going through their own pain and their own stuff. I mean, who knows? You know, maybe they're having a margarita on their veranda with somebody else that was my replacement. But that's their MO, and I don't really care because I realized that the thing I held on to was that they were going to change and that they would treat somebody else better after me if I left, and that's a false thing that a lot of people say. And I realized that this is a characteristic.
I have to stop you there because you have nothing to atone for. You did nothing wrong. He exploited your trauma. He exploited the best that you were looking for in him. He exploited that need. You did nothing wrong. He's the perpetrator. That's an internalizer talking.
And he saw,
you need to point the finger at him.
Yeah, and he saw the advancement of you in what you're doing as a black trans woman, you know? And, you know, to see us succeed and be successful. I mean, I talk about it all the time on, you know, when I go to conferences and speak. We're not what you see on Jerry Springer show.
Right.
You know, we are very positive in the community, which people really need to take note of, that we can do it. And you thinking that maybe you failed. You didn't fail. He failed you.
Exactly.
I guess, you know, well.
So I'm pumping you up.
Yeah. You know.
Because it's true.
I guess in so many ways, people always have told me, like, oh, you're so strong. How you deal with that? You know, like, how could you, you know, whatever. And there it is. You know, there's the understanding that.
But we're vulnerable. We're human. We can fail at certain things. And we don't have to always stay in that, I failed. I got out of something that was very detrimental to you. You know?
And narcissists are good at what they do. Abusers are good at what they do. Even the strongest woman that you think would never be affected can be affected because they start here. They start with your mind, your heart, your need for something. They find that and they exploit it. And once they get a hold of your mind, it's over.
And I definitely felt that. Because I would sit and I would ask before big moves were taken. And I would say, if there's something you need to tell me now. Mm-hmm. Because I can deal with it possibly. But if I can't, at least we're not getting into this any deeper. Mm-hmm. And they would say, well, why would I do all of this? That would be crazy. And I just asked, well, then why would you do all of this? And then know you were crazy. So another year goes by. And it's just constant mess, you know, constant things. Women trying to add me on Instagram that I've seen a picture in the wallet before, you know, things that were just terrible that, you know, before you say anything, nothing happened, you know, those kind of things. And it's like, I would call my friend, all the time, like trying to talk to her, like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, does this make sense? Like, this is what's happening. And she's like, well, maybe it's this. I mean, normal situations that people just go through, or just common situations, are very boiled down in this different way. They're just like, okay, somebody had an issue in their relationship, so they did these different things, or like maybe this is what happened, or maybe somebody clung on too long. The excuse that was told to me of why they didn't cut these people off was because they didn't want to be mean to them. Mm-hmm. And I felt that if your ex, who you said did all of these turmoil things to your family, and people are, were crazy, and, did all this stuff to you, and you did stuff to her in revenge, and it just kind of kept going, then why would you still be texting this person if they're in Florida? Mm-hmm. You're hoovering. And that's what I learned now, is the hoovering effect. That's when I really started to realize the terminology within March of this year. I started to look at these videos. While we were on a plane going somewhere, I was listening to Dr. Romney on tape next to him, being like, do you stay or do you go? That was her book. Mm-hmm. Or if you're in a narcissist relationship, do you stay or do you go? And I remember listening to this tape, writing down all of these things, and saying, okay, I feel like this is what this exactly is. This is not normal, what I'm enduring. Because if it had been a situation where we had gone on with our relationship and then maybe something had happened, okay, fine, like that's not fine. But in the understanding of all the things I had already forgiven, the chances that they just loved for you to give them, it would have been normalized, okay? But to know this started from the beginning. Like, you talking about the first month. Why did we keep going? Why did you keep doing this? And why did we keep? So there's a level. There's a level of where it had to be about the control over me or whatever, because don't have kids, aren't married, they didn't need my money. What was the point?
Right.
There is no point. But the ultimate game. And that's why all these other people, I mean...
That was what I earlier asked about, had he dated a trans person before. Mm-hmm. To me, if this was an experiment, because I tell you, as a trans woman, I think we want to be accepted, we want to be loved, and to find somebody who's going to give that to you first, I don't know what he was thinking, if that was the case or what.
I feel like that's why it was a little different, because I was doing things that people in common situations do, right? Mm-hmm. You're meeting people, you're doing things. I felt a false sense of security. That I realized that, I don't, that's why I always said this can be what it is. Because just like you said, you put that insecurity to the forefront and say, why would they be doing all of this if they had to deal with all of this? But then when I think about it, what did they really deal with?
Right.
I'm in a wonderful situation with my family, my friends. I have wonderful colleagues. I'm the head of my company. I have so many things going for me. And at the end of the day, it almost, when you boil it down, I had more to offer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So why did I have to feel so fortunate and then be told in a way that I should be fortunate? Mm. And so that just triggers that point of, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. I'm not who I am. I'm not what I am. I'm just this. And that's the point. I can't go on and pretend to post and, live my life and just be like, oh, great, without saying, even if I'm not to blame, I share the understanding of being in it, and that I agreed against my own judgment. But this is a good understanding for people to know that this is more than just a girlfriend that has an issue. It's more than a boyfriend who had a cheating complex. This is where you have to be careful about in your job, your friends, not really friends, maybe you don't have friends like that, but your job, it could be parents, and it could be a spouse. If they have narcissistic personality disorder, this is a revolving situation. Mm-hmm. It does not get better without therapy. It does not get better without them atoning, and a lot of times they will not do those things. Mm-hmm. I'm in therapy. I've been in therapy. I suggested this person go. Mm. Okay? So I had to take it to the point of doing the group counseling. And then them tell me, oh, you need more therapy. Well, if I'm going, what are you talking about?
Right.
So it's just important to like not always pin people as insecure, bitter, and to put them into a box of something you don't know.
Right.
I've done it. Everybody's done it. And now that I understand what I was even doing, being jealous towards other women, you know, I'd see a woman, you know, and he'd be staring or whatever. Now all of a sudden I'm aiming towards her. You know, and women do that. You know, it's like, oh, you know, I'm going to be mad at this person because of what this person's doing. Because I'm upset in my life. So it's this woman's fault. And then when she takes back her life, you're mad because you're still in yours.
Right.
And there were so many times I saw that.
Wow.
So when I took back my life, I don't know if people were upset or whatever because I decided to go to the home I still had keys to and very much well lived in 2 days later after, you know, the last hurrah, I'll call it. Friends and family and neighbors who I really just cannot thank enough helped me to go and get my stuff, pack it up in 45 minutes and roll out all the way from a different state.
Wow.
And one of them was an officer of the law. A very respectable man that I appreciate till this day because his family have written me cards. People that were in the neighborhood that I didn't even socialize with too much had my number and called to see if I was okay because they realized that someone right and this woman took back her life. I was there one day and then I was there the other day with a van and people were hustling to get me out of there. This was not a moment of, oh, let me see my stuff, you know, thrown out. And going into the house, he was already packing my stuff after what he had done. So this shows that this person had no remorse for this. They were texting my friend all kinds of terrible things that they might have done. And she was then like, what's really going on? Because you're not telling me everything, and I don't understand this. And so what do? You tell your friend. And she goes, why would you not?
Did he ever put you in a dangerous situation?
I mean, you know, there's situations where I felt very cornered, you know, going to Thanksgiving with a group of people that I don't know, nobody. And having the wife say how she was over at, you know, his house alone, you know, with their child or whatever, her child or twice, and he lied about it. And I'm like, why would you lie about that? Like, and she's saying it at the table next to me during Thanksgiving. This is the first time I've met this person that I was never able to meet because she was jealous of all of his girlfriends and blah, blah. And I'm like, why is your friend's wife worried about you? This is weird.
Right.
And why is she texting you? This is weird. Like, it was always some weird stuff. So when that happened, I remember being very, like, calm because I was like, I can't show that I'm affected by what she just said because he lied about her being there. And she said she had been there twice. And it seemed like there was no problem with this and, you know, whatever. But I knew that they had dealings with something else going on that I won't get into that I think maybe that's why she was working her room. But that's ridiculous, and that's not only for me. And I just remember being told, no. Afterwards, I saw her, like, very, like, intimately, like, touching, you know, and feeding him and doing stuff. And I was, like, very, like, what is this?
Right.
You know, what is this? You know, and I have to sit here and take this? You know, like, this is absolutely crazy. And I was told that I always ruin a good time. I'd never said anything there, but I'd said it after when we left to keep the understanding of what we were doing. And I was told, you know, and then the next time I see this woman, a few days later for something we had done, and I said, oh, since you've been in the house, you know, anything new? She says, oh, we got a new bed. So, I mean, these are the greatest hits of, like, craziness. So that was the only time I probably felt really, like, out of my whack. I don't want to put this thought of, like, oh, you know, I was in these, like, you know, gang-like situations or, like, whatever. But that was the only time I felt so awkward.
See, I would have taken my earrings off.
Okay, and see, and that's the thing, though, because I looked crazy to people who were around that when I expressed that this had bothered me, it got dwindled down to, oh, well, you know, some women act like that, and oh, da-da. And it's like, you're not hearing what I'm saying. So what do? Okay.
Well,
Okay,
and he
that's
kind of
it.
set you up for almost a dangerous situation because
Yeah, if I would have went off.
something could have popped off between you and that female. It happened with me, where I told you about my ex going up to females that were, kind of saying things under their breath. And, the best friend was like, hey, they're talking about you. They think you're cute, whatever, jealous.
Right.
And he goes up to them and was like, oh, you talking about my girl? You talking about my girl? Escalating the situation. Well, we go off and they follow us. And when we get up to the top of the escalator, we get, we get crowded by them, their family members. And it's like at least 20 of them and 2 of us. And he's standing off the side laughing about the situation. And luckily we got out of it when security came by. But they were ready to fight us. And it would have been a gang up on 2 people.
Mm.
My thing is, it's very sad that, in a way, the enabling and the trying to turn my friends on me in situations, that was upsetting. Mm-hmm. I had certain friends that, he was always like irritated by for no reason, but they would be the ones who wanted me to go somewhere with them or do certain things. And, it's just so funny to me now that I think but yet he would always watch their stories, always be on their stuff, always, wanting them to be under his eye, so it's just like, and I was blamed for everything. Even, just issues that I would, be getting into with a friend, that's normal, and it would be like, oh, you're this person, like, always in my mind, like, oh, you're this person, you're negative, you're angry, you're this, and I'm like, it's so crazy, because if I'm so all of this, then why are we here?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Why did you take me from there to here?
Right.
Did
he try to turn your friends against you?
Many times, because I wouldn't speak up about what was really going on, because I didn't want people to take, like I said, things into their own hands and be like, you need to leave, you need to do this stuff. You get scared of that. You don't know what you want yet, and you don't want somebody to just crowbar you off, and then you're embarrassed. So there would be times where I would kind of have a passive aggressive attitude all of a sudden about something brought up. Mm-hmm. But it might have been something we were talking about maybe before people came. And whenever I had a little kind of remark or whatever, it would be seen as I was being too much. And then, maybe some irritation would go on with me and a friend. And it would just create issues. A friend and I didn't talk for 2 or 3 days because I felt boundaries were crossed or they felt I was, being a certain way. But then later we would have to talk about it. But I'm talking about it in parables because I'm not telling them the whole thing that went on, the issue we really had. So, also that my examiners, who are also my friends, that they've been my family for a very long time, we do everything together and everything for each other, that they were scared of me. And I remember watching this podcast earlier this year, and Miley Cyrus was interviewed by Joe Rogan, like him or not, whatever. But the thing is, Miley Cyrus said she had left her marriage because the wife had said, oh, your friends are scared of you. Because it was a form of manipulation, that her being cared for in a certain way and wanting to have people around you and care the way that you care, that them acknowledging the things you do is somehow kissing up to you. It's not accolades, it's not validation, it's kissing up to you. They're scared of you. As if, for some reason, we don't have a give and take relationship. And that was because he did not have that with me.
Right.
I would give, and then eventually he would do something. And it would just be like, okay, whatever. But it was never a thing of I know you really like this, let me do this for you. Or, what's your love language, whatever kind of thing. I tried books, I tried talking about different things, I tried to break all of that down. But I realized that even when, I had met new neighbors and people like that, and I was talking with my best friend and him, and I said, they're really nice, I really enjoyed the people. And he was like, well, even if they didn't like you, they wouldn't say anything. And she was like, why would you say something like that?
Yeah, really.
But it was always a thing. And he was like, oh, well, because I'm mad because they wanted her to go somewhere and were nice to her, and I've been here.
Definitely jealousy I see here. From the start, he just didn't want you to succeed to the level you're at now.
And that was the thing. Every time I would get a magazine cover or an award or a talk, it would always be critiqued. Oh, you've had better pictures. Oh, I've heard that before. This kind of thing. And I'm like, you don't really understand, what this actually is meaning out here. You don't know what, Do you understand? Oh, well, no, I get it. Like, yeah, I mean, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But before my big tag interview with Ebony last year, and the background is like now the proper hell that was built, is right before, I'm like, oh, do you want to watch my thing? Like, you know, I'm about to go on. And he was like, oh, just like a minion, I'll do whatever you want, okay? And I'm like, I'm about to go on and talk about my business, what I've done, my life, and this is how you feel. The Washington Business Journal, when that came through, whatever. You know, so it was just like anything that I was doing that I felt was so amazing, he felt was pulling me away from something. And it was never shared, it was never acknowledged. It was something that I always had to almost feel like I couldn't really share. Because when I did, I always put like a film on it, or, you know, make sure I covered up the fact of why I was in this. So that then therefore it would always keep him incognito about my life. And here I'm like making these accolades and I'm not even proud of who I am. My own mother is proud of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
My own mother has that up, shares everything with her friends, and she's the most important person to me. To know that my business has grown because of the business journal and the things that a friend of mine very well in the background nominated me for. I've had people in my life that have really shown up for me. And to look at a person and realize that this person did not, and would not, and held Instagram posts over my head, made me feel like, you know, my friends are on their stuff, and yet they're sharing locations I'm with. They're with me in the background somewhere, and they're seeing that this person's taking advantage, and then saying, oh, da-da-da-da.
It's so wild because sometimes I get, you know, after my transition, it'll be 11 years, October 1st. I mean, it's like I put myself purposely on hold for 5 years. And then after I had the big surgery, I said, now I'm ready to date. And that's now been almost 6 years that I haven't found anybody. But this is what I'm scared about, because I want to get into a relationship to share the things that we do and stuff. And if you don't get that support, and you weren't getting it.
No, and I think that that's the point, is like, I was always wanting to support them. If they had some event, you know, I'm trying to keep it very, you know, low on what they were doing, but there are other extra events or, you know, whatever. I always showed up. I was always on point. I was always making sure that I...
And I'm sure he liked that.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. But even, like, when I was there, I was treated like as if, you know, I shouldn't be really introduced to people unless they had come over. I was never taken over to be like, oh, this is so-and-so and blah, blah, blah.
So he never introduced you to his
No, he never,
friends?
like, properly put it over. And that couple was one sitting behind me. Okay? Mm-hmm. And that's when I think the ex-girlfriend got wind of whatever, because I was there and the woman knew her. So all this drama ensues. Well, I'm just wanting to see something go on and support this person the day before my birthday. And, you know, what I realized was that I had such a need to be so inducted into this common world of, like, being visible, being seen, that I was willing to take everything I had worked for and jump off the cliff just to seemingly be with this person. It was out of control, and I never understood why. I never understood why I would feel this way. And, you know, when somebody makes you feel like the things you're doing are just not what they're supposed to be, then it's bad. And now I realize there's a term for it. I realize that there is therapy to be done. I realize that I am not the only person. I realized when I came home and talked to my dear friend here that we hadn't opened up. Mm-hmm. We had not been transparent to each other. And as I was gaining friendships, you know, friendship more with her being open in this last year, I was always quizzed on what I was talking about with her because of the business that she's curated, which is about, you know, like couples therapy in a box, we call it. And it's about different traumas and things like that that people can also, you know, deal with inside, you know, your home, and, you know, how to release and be a better couple to each other. And I thought that was wonderful. I mean, we were even taking a photo and put on the site and whatever, but when I interviewed her, the thing that sparked me was he listened, and I had talked to her about these things, and she kept talking about her trauma, but she never talked about what trauma. And after I got off, I was quizzed down the line. Like, what was the trauma? What was the trauma? What was the trauma? And then I realized this is one of those characteristics. I need to know what it is so I can dismantle it. I need to know what she's going to tell you. And it was just so weird to me because all in my eyes I'm realizing what's happening. And there was no space for me to just be. But yet I was the one that was making them walk on eggshells. So all of the reversal is what I'm trying to convey to people, is that there's a reversal that happens. And you need to be careful about that. Because once you start to get into what I always call the banana peel, is when you slip and you go into it, it's very hard to like pull yourself back up. Your reality is inward and it's turned upside down. And without people to really be there for you, like, you could be gone.
Right.
Mentally.
And that's what he was trying to do, was basically create an enabler, or try to take this person out, take me out of the situation. Because if I could have become an enabler, then I'm on his side. But if I'm not, then I can talk her out of his power. And he no longer has that grasp on her. And that's the goal. They alienate the people that are going to take her away, or they create the enablers that are going to help him, accomplish his goal of holding that power over her. And I want to go back to, that what you said about being afraid of finding that person. And it's like, I was in that place, I'm so far into my healing journey. But I actually found somebody. I didn't think that after dealing with 2 narcissists that, I would ever find anybody. I was suicidal, everything, self-harmer. And it wasn't, and I ended up finding somebody, like, not even, I think, maybe a year after I had that last abusive relationship. And he's been so patient with me. And I started therapy because of him. And I wanted to better myself because of him. And also for myself and for the people around me. And I just realized that, if I, in that darkest point, could find somebody that is patient, is kind, and loves me for who I am, then that's true for all people. Because I didn't believe it, because I was in the darkest tunnel. I was ready to end it all.
Wow. I mean, to hear the way y'all explain about the relationships, I'm like, do I want to get in a relationship or do I want to stay single? It's like, and I know, you probably have seen my posts and stuff about, what God has done for me in my life, and I believe wholeheartedly I'm still single for a reason. There's somebody out there, but I don't know where, and sometimes I sit there and go, God could just send them today. I've been patient, for almost 11 years, but nothing's happening. And then to hear about y'all being in that darkest moment. And I've told you, you can call me, but you got Kat, I know. But if you can't, call me, because I don't want nothing to ever happen to you, let alone any other trans person that I've been friends with, or even that contacts me on my speaking engagements or stuff. I was like, hey, I don't want to see nobody's name read out again on November 20th. It just drives me bonkers. And that could have possibly happened for either him doing it to you or you doing it yourself. And I don't want that. And I'm trying not to cry. Because y'all, you mean so much to me. And Kat,
I appreciate it.
And y'all are going to be my new best friends.
Yeah.
even more. But yeah, and don't you start crying. I'm getting everybody crying here.
Well, I mean, and that's the point, is that I felt it was getting to a point where, you watch the ID channel and you're like, oh, some other woman's in the background. Now all of a sudden the aggression goes up. You're not being listened to anymore. All of a sudden things are happening that seem very out of whack. You're being, it was just all of a sudden a tornado. And I realized that there was something happening again. And that when I was saying I wanted to end the relationship possibly in June because of seeing an exchange with another woman again, and I just was like, it was during a party of mine, and I was just like, no, I'm not dealing with this again. It was the first time I had said that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, oh, we're going to be together, blah, 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 stop it, you know, all this stuff. And I was like, whatever, you know, but I was lethargic.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it was like, you know, then the reversal of, oh, now I'm going to end it with you. You know, now I'm irritated because I'm like, whoa, like, after everything I've done, like, how, you know, like, what? And, you know, you're not thinking, like, this could be the best thing that's happening right now. But the only thing that I understood was through my research over the last few months was even if I would have left that kind of situation, all of a sudden just, okay, I'm gone, the hoovering, the mental text messages, the you're psychotic or the I want you back or what did you do? You know, it's a constant because I realized that woman that messaged me everything, his ex that was so crazy, she was not crazy.
Mm-mm.
She was maybe mentally unwell, but I don't know her, and I still don't know her. So the thing is, and y'all know that one, so the thing is, I think that if she had a personality disorder, that it was definitely inflamed because of a person who kept hoovering, promising her things, saying things. And it would be hard for me to sit here and say all of this if she did not screenshot everything and send it to me.
Right.
And the first time I saw I love you in a text was only because I saw that he said I love you to her in that text and said, well, why would you, what is this? And immediately, we need to get past this. And then, oh, do you want something done to your body? Because she might know, and I don't know. And I mean, you know, and I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, I have never been so maneuvered. But then you think about you. Well, maybe I'm not so perfect. Maybe I'm not the best. Maybe I do need to do something. You know, I started to feed into a situation of do I need certain things to make me look a certain way. I had never had an issue. I had never been out of my body that way. I felt I was confident, and I proceeded to try and be. But, you know, I went on this fitness journey. I felt like I had to, you know, continue to up all the time to be the best of who I was. And inside, I just was not. So it's not about really finding a partner, I don't think, to be very honest. I think that it's about knowing what you're getting yourself into. And when you feel that intuition of this doesn't smell right, there's a reason. I was literally sending this person before even we got so deep in anything, right? Like probably after the third date, maybe. I don't know. I think it was after the second date. I was sending this long text like, you know what? Something seems very off and seems very shady, and I just feel like maybe da-da-da-da-da, because I tried to call and he didn't answer, and then said there was somebody over, like a friend or something. It just didn't sound right. And I remember I was sending the text and he called. That's why I didn't go through. So if I would have just said, you know what? I just don't feel, and went on, it could have saved us both a whole bunch of drama. But at the end of the day, that wouldn't have been enough.
Right.
Because them other people were still slayed into that. Those text messages, the way he beat down that girl on that text that he had dealt with, and I saw it, and I remember confronting, like, I'm not condoning that. You were in the wrong. Why would you talk to somebody saying they psychotic? It was always, that was the thing, you're psychotic. Why is she psychotic when she's looking for you? You were dating her, and you disappear. And you were doing that while you were with me. So the thing is, I'm supposed to take the side of, like, that you're this great noble person. Like, what if that person feels whatever? Now, there's a lot of people that say you can't feel other people's pain. You can't get into that. I've always tried to be that kind of person, like, oh, let's all kind of, like, get away from this person. But, you know, I was already in it at that time.
Yeah, it's like this, well, maybe 3 months ago, I was, well, actually, I've known the guy for about maybe 2 years. He's always followed me on Facebook, and then finally we were going to go out. And to go out to an event that I really, really wanted to go to, it was the Roaring Twenties thing for the Platform magazine. And I just had this gut feeling, you know. And I said, whenever you have gut feelings, go with it, because you know something's not right. And even he was like, oh, I want to marry you, and what's your ring size? I'm like
Love bombing.
I said,
Dating.
yeah, I just said, I'm not getting married. That's simple as that. And then, of course, he gets an outfit for the Roaring Twenties, and I had mine. You know, he even showed me his outfit, and then it was raining real bad. I told him I'd meet him at the place because for some odd reason, I just said I don't want him picking me up here at the house or go to his place. You know, I want you to meet me at the event, and that's the way I took it. We were supposed to meet at 3:45 because the event started at 4. Where was he? Still at home. Calls me up, goes, they still doing it? I'm like, yeah, because where he lived at versus where the event was is like, good 30 miles, so it could be very obvious it's not raining. And I just basically, but he wanted to go to this other event that he went to that was like probably like 10 minutes from here, and I'm like, all right, fine. You want to do that? And I haven't heard from him as of today, and that was like 3 months ago that he wanted to do this, and I just basically dropped him and unfriended him on Facebook, even though we were. And then even things like, well, what type of work you do? Doesn't want to really say, but he's like supposedly doing security. Little did he know, I know a lot more of what I was asking and questioning than he did, so it just didn't go anywhere. But I think he was one of those type of people that was just running around getting girls, to go out or whatever, and I wasn't playing that game.
Well, and that's what they do. They ask you a lot of things and give you less information. It was like, what are your biggest fears? You feel like you're being intimate with this person. You're like, oh, wow, it's like really here. Like, oh my gosh, and, what, happened with your ex and like blah, blah. And I didn't really have like crazy stories. Like I didn't have that kind of understanding for the person I had been with. So it was like, okay, well, I can't kind of, get you with that one. Well, your past, like, what's your, kind of situation going on? So then, of course, I tell about my dad and how, like, I was controlled and how this thing. And it's like, I mean, the blueprint was just printed out.
So he knew all of that.
Yeah, and then, when the things would happen, it would be blamed on that. Oh, you're just sensitive because, what you went through with your father. And my friend stepped and just said, no, that's not true. Like, I've known her, and she's done a lot of things since then. This is because of you.
Right.
But it was like, a person could speak up on the subject, but not really like on the whole. And all I say is like, those kind of situations where they're kind of feeding it, they pull it out of you, but, they don't want anybody in their life. They don't want to get people close. They can't have the persona attacked. They can't have you meet people quickly because then all of a sudden stuff. So even if they'll let you meet the family, whatever, like they don't really want you to meet the friend. Because the friend's always going to say something, because you're friends. You're going to talk about old times. You're going to talk about things.
Right.
And things you've talked about maybe that don't seem like a big deal.
The exposure.
But then it's exposure. And so that happened. It was like, oh, you said you were going to move here. Oh, you were going to move there. Oh, wow. That's crazy. You told me something different. So then it was like, okay, about this person. Or I haven't met, some significant other of this person's for years. And I'm like, why would that be? Why would you not, and it's just like this whole thing of like, oh, because it would, and I'm like, that don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. And it's because you have so many moving parts going on, you don't know who to introduce them to.
Right.
And so, I was just the person that I was like, you're not going to make me out to be this person. You're not going to make me out to be crazy. I'm not. I am well fit in my mind. And even better than I have been in the last 2.5 years since I have been evacuated from this situation. And I say that because it happened within 48 hours. My life was different. And the relief through the grief is so different. I have seen people that I haven't seen now in almost years.
Wow. That
didn't know why I was there, like, on media, but never came to things. I pushed away many of my friend groups that I had hung out with, gone to the zoo with, seen apartments. They've had kids, they've had different things. But so much of me was just like, well, if I leave, I don't know if it's going to be like retaliation, like I don't know if it's like this thing, but they could travel, they could do whatever, answer the phone when they want, not when they don't. But I'd be asked when you get home, what you doing, who you with, what's going on, tell me what you're talking about on the phone. So it just all of a sudden you wake up and you realize this is what's happening. But then you don't have proof. And then you get proof. And then you can't believe this is happening. And then you go through the denial phase. You call your friend over for a weekend who stays with you while the person's out at a wedding pretending to be a Mr. Big Shot with all his friends, and you're in your home crying, going through a rage room, leaning on people. And when you FaceTime them, they're always in front of their family, so you don't get to talk about your feelings.
Right.
And then when you say, can you talk to them, which she was there, all of a sudden, your behavior is psychotic. Why would you do that? Because they were in fear that I was going to say something that would, making them look bad. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point. But then I get a text that says, my behavior was psychotic. And I'm like, after everything that has happened and how quickly, and you said, how long did it last after I found out the niceness? 3 days. Mm. Because that was the text that I got. And a lot of it was our back camera had died. Okay, so I was staying out there because I didn't want to be on camera. I knew that Ring camera was my big brother. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I did not go outside. But then when I did, I would get a text. And I was like, oh, is this how this works? I go outside and I get a text. Oh, wow, this is great. But what I realized was then I stopped doing it. And then later I was asked about it when they got home, like, oh, I noticed you weren't really, like, going out front. Like, what were you doing? Like, what do you mean? But at the same time, it was a shame that I knew this is what was happening, so then I knew not to do it. Right. So people thought I wasn't home the whole weekend. I mean, this was the whole thing. Even wrote a friend's wedding vows and almost pretty much addressed them about our situation to get me to feel so back and secure. It is wild. It's a lot to be given a time limit that your pain after 2 years and some change is so magnified because everything's turned upside down for you. It's a lot for someone to say, I'm only going to take this for so long. You know? You don't know.
I'm glad you had the strength to get out.
Mm-hmm. I had no choice, to be very honest. Like, it came to a head. And I'll leave that part out. Mm-hmm. But it came to a point where I had to get it together. And I remember calling a friend that, lived next to me, and I was giving this, like, soft core version of everything. Because even still in that situation, I was still, like, trying to figure out, like, what's happening. Am I going to be here? Am I not going to be here? Am I accepting this again? Are they trying to do something? I didn't know. So I called because I guess I don't know. Like, I felt like I wanted to rely on them for some reason in case I came back. And, and immediately, they were on it and were like, oh, this happened, like, this kind of thing. And I felt panic. I felt like, wait a minute, no, let me dumb this down. I'm not trying to make this person out to be, I all of a sudden recoiled. I recoiled. And I was like, I can't allow this person to take this out of my hands. Again, taking it out of my hands. Because I don't want this person to do what, I guess they could have done. And, it wasn't until, like, I went home to my mom and told her everything.
So here's the $1 million question. Would you go back with him?
No, because I understand that I have what are called episodes. Okay. Episodes are when you have a moment in time that's captured in a picture that seems like a really good time. And so I've done this practice where I go back to those pictures that I posted or that I have, and I remember, well, what happened before the picture? What happened after the picture? So I had episodes, but I did not have the life that I wanted. I was under harsh, like, it's...
Because I've seen some pictures of y'all, and I was like, wow, they look really happy, and I wish I was in a relationship like that,
and that's the point, and I felt like I was being phony. So this is me saying I was being phony. I was being what I wanted to curate as a leader, as a woman, as assimilation to what I feel is common culture. I wanted to have the look, the aesthetics, the big hair, the gowns, the good-looking man who, made money and was, doing these things. And I realized that, I was failing myself by not being authentic. I was curating my life. I was able to create what the person was telling me it was in pictures. And I also was doing it because I felt so many times I was robbed of pictures with them on their end that if I was doing it, you'll see like how like great this is and how wonderful. And of course they would tell me, oh yeah, you should post and you should do this on yours, but never on theirs until I found out all this mess. Then it was da 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 da. And I would get questions from people like, why doesn't he ever do that? You know, like, why are you? So there's levels. I would not go back because I understand that you can't. You can't. And to move forward is to go no contact, which is the last step, which when I left that day, everything was blocked. Emails, everything. That's why I went off of social media. I disabled everything because I had to give myself time to separate and be surrounded by loved ones to understand what I had really been through. And when I spoke to Kat, you know, as she's doing research for her wonderful company to help people and what she had been through, we started to have a common interest of, well, there's a lot of times we bury these things and we just go back to our normal lives, and it can create long-lasting trauma. And under the advice of my previous couples therapist, my therapist now, my mom, my wonderful friends, women who I've met at my job while doing exams that have been through things, and mostly Kat, I've been pushed to speak on this so that then other people that are going through this don't have to worry about this being alone, because it's not unique. It's not unique at all.
Mm-mm.
So when it comes down to it, no, I won't be going back. I'm fearful of a contact from this person because the mental hold they had on me is so severe that I can't even understand to tell people what it's like. It's something that clicks my brain off, and I shoot down into this dark place of I'm nothing. A friend saw it when I was sitting on the couch and I'd gotten that I'm psychotic text, and I went from this may be working to walking around in a circle because all of a sudden I don't know what's real. Am I wrong? Are you wrong? Is this happening? I can't allow that person in my life around the things I care about ever again. And as I work to really close this stuff out, I don't want to be reminded. Tina Turner waited years. Mariah waited years. These people waited years for something to come out, and then all of a sudden it's their life. This was a portion of my life. This will not be my life. I was always better than this. I deserved more. And for anybody who knows this person, that's fine. You will do what you do and you will enable, and I wish them the best, to be honest, to help themselves, because I have to definitely do the work. But I will never let anybody treat me like this and make me feel that I am nothing again. Not in work, not friends, not family, not in a relationship ever again. You can be scared, girl, but I am petrified. But it will not stop me from loving again, because when you go low, you can always go high.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Is there anything that you would like to tell the women out there? Warning signs or things that can help them?
Honestly,
I need your number too.
honestly, what I would tell women out there is be aware of your trauma. Acknowledge your trauma. That's going to give you the tools that you need to identify these type of people. And if something doesn't look right, it isn't. Trust your gut. Because if you don't, they get that mental hold, and it becomes such a dark spiral that it is hard for women to get out of. It is hard for men to get out of. It is hard for people to get out of. So my one thing to say is just acknowledge whatever needs you have, if whatever trauma you have, acknowledge it and get help. And when you end up in those positions, because Lord knows someone's going to end up in a position reach out to those who love you. Do not alienate them. Do not allow this person to take those people away from you, because they are going to be the shield that you need to get out.
So, Kat, is there any way of contacting you if somebody needs your services, you know?
So our company is Naked Love Box, and we provide healthy relationships for couples. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Naked Love Box. But if you want to reach out to me personally, just about trauma or being in an abusive relationship, you can contact me at Kat A. Cooper on Facebook or Black Creativist on Instagram.
Okay, great.
I don't want anybody contacting me. No.
If anybody does,
yes, message, then feel free. Definitely.
they can you can get in touch with Mimi through me at my website, and I'll forward over the information to you if that'll be nice. And
Definitely.
you can reach me at kkhomes.com, and I'll definitely make sure that Mimi gets it.
I should correct that. If I can honestly be of service and help, then yes, definitely reach out. But, I definitely want it to be where I tell my truth for the better, for the betterment. And I just hope that that's what it became.
Great. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. But we want to thank you all for joining in and being a part of this podcast. My name is Karen Kendra Holmes. Mimi, Kat, and stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have more another day that's gonna let everybody know how Mimi's doing and that she took her own life back and is living the life that she wants to now. So long. Bye.